What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We've kind of finally almost made it to the end of the spring split. Things get kind of weird because CLOL is in the middle of everything, but the promotion relegation tournament has finally ended, and we have 3 qualifier teams that promoted their way into the LCS Challengers League for the summer split. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to our LCS provisional teams. We'll have some discussions about them, and CLOL also finishing up their first weekend of play. So a lot of actual League of Legends to talk about this week. My name is Graves. I'm joined alongside Hawk as usual. Hawk, we made it. End of the road. Spring split. Basically over at this point.
It was a long and arduous road, but a very, very fun one. I know by the end, I was dying with schoolwork and could hardly watch any of the games, but I heard a lot of them were bangers. And now, Grapes, I am 3 weeks away from graduating from college, and we'll have lots of time to watch League of Legends over the summer. And I'm excited for the future because our qualifier teams did it, baby! Woo!
It's so crazy. I was not expecting 3 of our qualifier teams to make it in. I thought, Maryville has a good shot. Maybe one of the other ones do. 3? And the third one that made it in, I mean, we're going to talk about that as our first headline. Yeah. But wow, just not exactly what we had on our docket. But we, of course, are nearing the end of spring. We may or may not have another episode coming out next week, depending on what we can gather for an interview. Also, just, of course, a lot of moving pieces with the semesters for school coming to a close, and maybe a bit of a slower news cycle. So we'll feel it out. If there's stuff to talk about, we're going to be here to talk about it. And of course, we were on the CLOL broadcast, both of us, last weekend as well. We may or may not be on that again for next week. We'll see. We'll keep you guys updated. But
who knows?
But it was a lot of fun. We still got to cover some League this week.
Yeah, I know, it was great. My matches were all pretty one-sided on the Sunday broadcast, unfortunately, but it was still a lot of fun getting to cover collegiate. It's always a good time down there, and it's only sure to heat up with the action as we approach round of 16 and beyond.
Yeah, we got a little bit of promotion recap and a little bit of CLOL preview coming your way for our headlines. So, I don't know, we can just jump right into things here. We got 5 hot topics to discuss, and the first one, of course, is about the promotion relegation tournament. 2 things that I think both of us were not expecting ended up happening. Supernova promoted into the NACL, and FLYFAM got eliminated rather quickly, falling in a 2-0 fashion in the lower bracket to Team Liquid First after getting 2-0'd by Tony Top. So not winning a single game throughout the entire tournament. They are out of the LCS Challengers League. Hawk, which one of these 2 events was more surprising to you?
Yeah, so coming into the promotion relegation tournament on multiple podcasts, I power ranked FLYFAM 2nd, and I power ranked Supernova 8th. Now, by the power of math and just my brain, Supernova promoting is by far way more surprising. Shout out to Supernova, the kings, the guardians of amateur. They fucking did it, baby. Look, FLYFAM coming in, I was pretty sure they would not demote, and I am very surprised that they did fall down. However, I did still feel like there was a world because I thought that teams like Team Fish Taco and Tony Top were pretty damn strong. So it wouldn't have been completely out of left field. I honestly held zero hope for Supernova. I thought they were an entire tier below everybody else in the tournament, even Team Liquid First and Last Dance. This was not the result I was expecting whatsoever. And I mean, massive congratulations to them. Everybody stepped up and they completely deserve it. Dragoon, you fucking did it, dude. You deserve to be as happy as you were. And I was not expecting it, and I cannot be happier for them.
Dude, that Dragoon interview, my God. I was tearing up watching that.
I mean, that's what it's all about, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we actually ran a graphic while I was on the show while Supernova was playing in the lower bracket, just giving a lot of praise towards his accomplishments in the Tier 3 scene, time in Dignitas Mirage, and then over on No Team and Fear, and always seems really, really close to making it into that next step, and for some reason has not been given that opportunity for the last couple of years, and had to do it the old-fashioned way, it seemed. And he really, of course, had a great time. The Game 3 Darius against the Last Dance lock-in. I really love how Supernova put a lot of faith into Dragoon in the moments that it mattered most he played a lot of weak side games throughout the qualifiers, had a lot of Cassante and Orin and things like that. But lost that first game to Last Dance. Mordekaiser game 2. And then the Darius game
Hell
3,
yeah.
they won both of them, and then got a lot of carry picks in that Team Fish Taco matchup as well. And it must feel so good for him and just for the rest of the team as well. I'm gonna have to agree with you here. I thought that there was a world where Taco or Tony could go up and surprise FlyFam a little bit. I was definitely disappointed in the way that FlyFam did drop the series. It seemed that a lot of their drafts just really weren't up to snuff, especially against Tony Top, where they gave him Jax 2 games in a row and put Lunacia on tanks twice. There was something just a little bit disjointed about how that team functioned throughout the event, and it was sad to see them kind of bow out in such a unceremonious way, because they definitely were on the up and up throughout the last half of the season, especially when Hyper came in.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough to see FlyFam go for sure. I know I, coming into the split, was really excited about that roster. But things just didn't really pan out for him, And I mean, I hope I see all the players coming back. I would be honestly pretty surprised if it's under the FlyFam banner. Maybe it will be. But I mean, a lot of really great players on the team, and I'm sure that they can bounce back given the right environment. Just definitely was not their tournament or anything. But I mean, just to again speak to the answer of this question, right? Like, I would not have I'm more surprised that it's Supernova. Because if FlyFam didn't promote right, I would have expected somebody else, like we were saying. So the fact that not only Supernova promoted, but also FlyFam demoted, it was crazy. So, I mean, yeah, Supernova from the top rope, dude, surprised everyone.
Yeah, looked pretty good, and I'm excited to see the brand, of course, and the players in the league next summer. Let's take a look at our next question, which I guess is a little bit similar, is our discussion about some of the best promotion relegation players throughout the entire tournament. Maybe a little bit of a spoiler there for that headline for a little bit later on in the show. But we have, of course, a lot of players that promoted, some players that didn't. Hawk, who are some people that stood out to you?
I mean, look, we've had a lot of banter going back and forth. Levitating Snow 2, baby. Pentakill in the bottom lane. Taking down Team Fish Taco. Promoting straight into the NACL. They were fucking on fire, man. When we were coming to this tournament, I was talking about the top side. Tony Top and Wallflower being the big carries. But, I mean, Levitating Snow 2, they stepped the hell up. And, I mean, honestly, I probably didn't give them enough credit. They had a great split overall. But, I mean, they came and played when the time mattered most and are a huge reason why this team promoted. So
you're just trying to win their favor back.
I'm
right
trying
now.
to.
That's all that's happening right now. They're watching this right now, and
guys,
they know
please
it's up.
take me back.
Levitating Snow, it's up. Hawk, he doesn't mean it. They looked really good. I think the rest of the team kind of worked around them as well. Wallflower, I think, went back to kind of that form that he was in the first qualifier, where he was really active around the map, especially in the first series that they had against FlyFam. I thought that Wallflower had a really good series, and yeah, Levitating Snow really showed up. All the broadcasts, all the people on the NACL side that haven't watched these guys, were really hyping those two up, especially because we haven't really seen them before at this level of play. And yeah, had a really good performance. I'm gonna give some love first to Quacker on the side of AOE, coming in as a substitute, and I think performing pretty admirably, especially in that 5-game brawl that they had against Maryville University to get themselves into the NACL. Definitely had his champion pool targeted a little bit. Niles had some incredible games that series, but when it came down to it, Quacker, he hunkered down. He really performed well, and I got to give him some credit here in that sense. And one more shout out as well. Of course, we talked about Supernova a little bit, but Kisno and Onat coming together, this young rookie mid jungle duo. We talked about it a lot on the broadcast this week, but man, they really just showed up this week. And Kisno specifically, I know I talked to Onat a little bit, and he said, we're working together and trying to improve our synergy, and they really stepped it up.
Dude, I mean, Kisno, what a debut split. How about that? Promoting into the NACL, and I mean, being an X factor on all the teams. I know with Supernova coming into this tournament, we still thought he'd be a weak link, but definitely stepped up. I mean, if we're talking about standout performances, just as far as expectations versus reality, like, what a difference. So, I mean, Kisno definitely deserving of a shout out, and I always like shouting out junglers too because they get flamed all the time, right? They deserve a little love. So, Kisno, you get the love. You deserve it, buddy.
I'm trying to think of a standout player for Maryville, but it kind of was just everyone that whole
Maryville's
series.
just fucking good. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
Like everyone played well, like in their own moments. I think
they're just good.
Niles did have a really good series against AoE. That was the one I
true.
was on the desk for. He was really really good. So I'll give Niles some love here for sure. Let's move on to, of course, maybe a little bit of a less optimistic tone as we just promoted some teams in the NACL. There might be some other ones trying to get their way out of here. In an interview with Travis Gafford, Riot president of esports operations John Needham alluded to the fact that all of the 10 LCS owners requested to not be required to have challenger spots in the NACL for this summer. There's a lot of reasons for this. Of course, esports kind of on the economic downturn as of late, and teams have been trying to find places to save some money where they can. Hawk, how do we feel about this? Because it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it is a little bit concerning when you think about it in the long run.
So just to add a couple caveats as well, as I always do with these questions. Some owners have come out and said that this doesn't necessarily mean that they would get rid of their challengers team, just that they don't want to be required to. Like, I think C9 Jack said we would keep our C9 challengers, for example. Also, that doesn't mean this is happening. It just means that the owners want it to happen. So who knows, right? With all that being said, I mean, look, I think this sucks, and I know I'm biased because we're the guys that sit here and talk about NAC all the time. But I do think this would hurt the scene a lot. I just think that the fewer teams there are that are helping players and giving them exposure and putting money into the scene, the more it's actually going to die faster. And that's not to say it's dying. I think people a lot of times overblow, like, oh, League is dying, LCS is dying. Like, no, it's downsizing, and that sometimes is healthy for a scene to be able to grow again, right? But yeah, I mean, I just think it's a bummer, and I really hope this doesn't happen because, look, I know a lot of LCS orgs don't really use their challengers rosters, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't exist. I guess is sort of my my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I first of all, again, want to just follow up and agree with you there in the fact that there will definitely still be some LCS teams with challengers rosters. That's not going to necessarily 100% go away with every single team. Also, I'm like 99% sure that there will still be 16 teams in the league next year. It just kind of will depend on if some teams drop. Some other groups, independent organizations probably would step in, and maybe the league landscape looks a little bit different, but there's still going to be 16 teams, and I find it very hard to believe that Riot will change the format so quickly, especially after overall NACL went pretty well.
It would probably be the same, I would guess. Like, I doubt there's any change would probably be for 2024 at the earliest, so we're talking way down the line.
Yeah, and in terms of budget, it's not a lot compared to especially what different LCS organizations pay, like for their main teams and for their training facilities and for whatever else and whoever else, other streamers that their organizations end up signing and things like that. But it is like 5 or 6 like league minimum level salaries, which is a lot of money in California especially. So I can understand where the teams are kind of coming from. However, of course, this is going to suck for players, and giving them that opportunity to go out and live in LA. Cubby had a really good point on Hotline League the other day, where he said that this is not just, of course, for training players to like be better at League of Legends. It's training them to also be pro players as well, follow the pro player routine, living in LA, scrimming every day, having teammates and things like that. So that's definitely going to take a hit if this change actually does end up coming through. The best we can hope for is that, of course, there are passionate individuals and passionate orgs that come in and try their best to help the development of these young players and give them opportunities. Or teams like Fear, who rented out an entire house for their players and things like that. I just think that the landscape will probably look a little bit different. I'm not really sure what it is going to be, but I would not be surprised to see this requirement be lifted. I'm just kind of surprised that it happened in like between splits. This kind of seems like a between year kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I I agree with you. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I just really hope Riot doesn't act super hastily on this because like I think the worst thing that could happen for the scene right is if it happened suddenly and then there wasn't really those teams to fill the void like you said. But if it happened over an off season, I think again eventually like the scene would recover and grow again and probably grow to be stronger. But I mean, yeah, I think LCS orgs at least for the time being should have to maintain their challengers rosters just because every NFL team needs a practice squad, right? Like same thing here. You've got to have. I think it just makes sense to be able to have a team in this Tier 2 league. So
Yeah, especially after if you're signing people for a full year, just like axing them halfway through, that always sucks.
That'd be
and
really
so,
weird. I would expect that if anything changes, it'd be for 2024. That's my guess, but I'm also completely uninformed. So
yeah, it's a different format, but also an interesting thing is that Europe, all the LEC teams also voted for this rule, and teams like Fnatic, XL, they still have their like ERL teams. Of course, it's a very, very different system, and like maybe we're going towards something like that where independent organizations can actually prosper. I don't really see how that works and functions in this current landscape, but maybe there are changes in the future that would allow that to happen. But if you don't have anything else to talk about with that, we just are going to have to wait and see, unfortunately, for the summer split. And we can talk about some collegiate that happened this weekend. Of course, the round of 32, 16 best of threes all took place over the last couple of days, last Saturday and Sunday. Hawk and I had the privilege of being on some of those streams. What was the most exciting moment that you had? Oh, wait, I messed that up.
we can switch them if you want.
No, it's all right. We can go this one. What's the most hype top 16 matchup that you are looking forward to watching for next week? I got that right. I nailed
it. you nailed it. Don't worry. So to me, there are two that are very clearly the most hype. One, Northwood against Ole Miss. I think that's going to be a banger. Two very, very good teams that were sort of in like the middle, like a cut below the best teams in their conference, but still very, very good. And then also Waterloo against Bethany, who is, the one of the top 4 teams from the North Conference against a lot of people's Cinderella in the University of Waterloo. So I think these two matchups are definitely the ones everyone should have their eyes on. That doesn't mean there aren't other ones that should be exciting as well, especially as we hurdle closer and closer to the finals. But those are the ones that I think are going to be big fireworks and are between teams that not just have the potential to win this current match, but also contend in their quarterfinals match for whoever wins.
Yeah, Northwood struggling a little bit in their series against Florida Southern. They had a couple of hiccups here and there.
Word. Yeah.
Game 1 lasted a while, I will say.
Game one was really long, but there was not any moments where I really thought they were going to lose. And I got flamed in the Twitch chat for this too. Oh my god, it was really funny. I was watching the VOD back and someone was like, "Why are the casters meat riding Northwood?" And it's like, maybe because they're winning the fucking series 2-0. Anyway.
Damn. We're calling people out right now on the show.
Yeah.
That's great.
I am calling people out on the show. I just thought that was really funny. Anyway, sorry. I'm a salty cast. I'm a salty streamer right now. Anyway, Northwood, I don't think they really struggled. But yeah, I mean, it did take a while. They struggled compared to like the 20-minute demolitions I was seeing the rest of the day.
Yeah. Ole Miss as well on the other side did actually drop a game to Cleary. They dropped their first game. Cleary, team that I mentioned, could have been a bit of a Cinderella story if they were able to get past Ole Miss. Unfortunately, not the case there, as of course Legacy on in that ADC position really pulled through in that game 3. I have a couple of other matchups that I want to look at here, and I want to gauge your interest on this.
Okay.
I have St. Clair versus ISU as being an interesting one. We talked about St. Clair, of course, being maybe a potential sleeper or a favorite, but ISU, they're still Illinois State University. You know what I mean? Like they have some really solid players top to bottom. I think that who is it? Disconnector had like a pretty good series overall in their matchup against Grandview. And St. Clair, their first game looked a little bit rocky. Maybe it just was nerves or something, but it seemed like they were never really on the same page, and they kind of just brute force their way to a win in a way, but I think that could be an interesting matchup as well.
Yeah.
And my other one here,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
we
Yeah.
each had, I guess we each kind of are bringing two to the table. I have Winthrop versus Harrisburg actually as being a
That should be a
maybe
good one. That was
interesting
another one I
matchup
had
as
my eyes
well.
on.
Harrisburg versus Ohio State was a game that I personally thought was going to be pretty close. Harrisburg looked a little bit shaky throughout the end of their Eastern Conference playoff run, but they really came to play up against OSU. They were a little over aggressive. They maybe tried to over index on the Camp 5 Fire train in game number 1, but afterwards they were really good in the early game as they usually were, and they also were able to take the leads that they had and actually turn them into sub 25-minute wins or sub 30-minute wins both times, which is not something that we've seen from them. So Winthrop looked pretty solid overall, but who knows? This could be a series I have my eyes on.
Yeah, it totally could be. To speak on St. Clair ISU, given that I just never know what to expect from ISU ever, I think this will be a good series. Because they are simultaneously the best collegiate team in the world and the worst collegiate team in the world, and nobody knows. I'm pretty sure it went that way in their series against Grandview, where they were, for one game, the worst collegiate team in the world, and for 2 games, the best one in the world. So, I mean, that logic alone makes me believe that, yeah, this will be a pretty exciting series. I do think St. Clair should be pretty heavily favored, but I would not be surprised if ISU at least gave them a run for their money. I would be pretty surprised if ISU won, though. I won't lie. I don't think ISU will win. I agree with you on Harrisburg-Winthrop, though. Similar situation. I'd be pretty surprised if Harrisburg won, but Winthrop is also a team that I will say they have actually struggled in their early games. More so than some of the other teams in collegiate. So Harrisburg could be a tough matchup for them. I just know, at least early on into the game, a lot of times they really rely on Frost Forest to generate plays for them. And a team like Harrisburg, they're much more willing to just bring the whole party. And you don't get to pick whether or not you want to show up because the party's coming to you. So, yeah, Harrisburg also, like you said, looked shaky at the end of their playoffs, kind of choked their way out a little early, still got seeded as high as they possibly could be. So I would agree. I think Winthrop is definitely not safe at all, and they should not rest on their laurels.
Yeah, and they have Waterloo versus Bethany afterwards as well. And I guess I didn't really get
we said, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really get the chance to tag on as much to this matchup, but it is interesting that they both dropped a game, which maybe or may not have been super expected. And of course, the other matchups: Maryville versus McMaster, St. Louis versus UC San Diego, UST versus York, Fisher versus Ottawa. Probably more one-sided than the other, but I did like the opportunity to talk about these 4 games specifically. So I guess we can move on to our last headline if you don't have anything else to say about the round of 16. And we could talk about the round of 32 instead, the games that did happen over these past couple of days. I mean, there's a lot of League of Legends to parse through here, Hawk. But what was one of your highlights from the weekend?
I mean, Ottawa taking down UCI, the West XD, man. Like that's fucking awesome. I know you're the MEC guy. Maybe I stole yours.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that was really awesome. And shout outs to Ottawa for showing up big time. I know a lot of people were actually kind of saying MEC might be pretty good this year. Well, MEC looking pretty good this year. Unfortunately, GVU couldn't get it done against ISU, but UCI as well. I mean, Graves, all things considered, very, very disappointing year for UCI. Not making NACL group stage, going out in top 32 of CLOL. Like, that is... I don't think it's the look that this team wanted to have.
Yeah, but the caliber of players that are on that team, definitely not. And it just seemed like they were a little bit disjointed throughout the whole series. I don't think Mike Young played his best in that best of 3. I will say Trickster put his big boy pants on and really carried Ottawa throughout that series. And Coda as well in the support role swapping down, was a really cool thing to watch. Shout out to Ottawa. My favorite moment, my biggest highlight. There was a game that ended with a backdoor double TP backdoor. I don't remember which one it was.
Now I'm trying to think because you're right.
One of them did exist. I will say though, in other news, that Illinois State 2-1 in Grandview was a really fun series as well. I was just actually had that tuned in after my stream was over for that game 3, and ISU really played well. is very interesting. Both of the West and MEC had their 1 seeds eliminated and their 2 seeds moving on,
Yeah.
which is pretty fun.
Against stiffer competition, because they were a lower seed too. Interestingly, the upsets were happening.
Yeah. UC San Diego also, I mean, talking about the West, really played well against Western.
They did, yeah.
It was pretty brutal. Like Lynx got really hard gapped or not gapped, but hard camped in game number 1, and then in game number 2 they decided to play him support, and then I don't know exactly what the reason behind that was, but
Grapes,
UC
I tuned into your
took
all's
advantage
game
of it.
2. I turned into your all's game 2 after I finished my stream, and that was like, I was like, what the I DM'd you on Discord, and I'm like, yo, why is Lynx at support right now? And you're like, I don't know. It doesn't look good, though. Yeah. Unfortunately, Western, they definitely, I don't think they had the year that they wanted either. The departure of a lot of their higher caliber players, only leaving Lynx, I think teams just sort of identified like, hey, let's just attack this guy, and it's a tough life.
More of a fun highlight is that Winthrop versus Farmingdale, Kenji and Frost Forest both really hard limit tested the first 5 minutes of game number 1, and it was 5-0 Farmingdale in the to start the first game. Winthrop won in 23 minutes, but it was funny. It's just oh no, it's gonna be one of these Winthrop games.
UST against Butler did the exact same thing. Dardoch in game 2 picked Nautilus jungle and absolutely ran it down for 10 minutes, and then they won the game. I mean, level 5 Nautilus trying to solo Dragon kind of ran it down. It was questionable.
Yeah, there's a reason that they're the 1 seeds, and the reason that Butler was one of the 8 seeds as well. So,
yes.
Unfortunate for them, but hey, maybe they had a couple of shining moments throughout at least one of their games. But that's going to do it for our headlines for this week. Got some CLOL talk, got some promotion relegation talk, also got to be a little bit doomer about the space as a whole, as we always love to do every once in a while.
Of course.
Heading into our second part of the show, we're going to do a little Q&A, so we'll see you in a bit. We've more or less reached the end of the split here, and we thought it would be a good time to ask some of our viewers questions about what they thought about NACL, hearing our thoughts about specific things, and maybe getting a little bit fun with it at the end of the day as well. We sent out a poll on our Twitter a little bit earlier today, on the day that we're recording this. You can follow us at Salty Runback Pod, and we got some nice responses, Hawk. Some friends at the show, and some friends of ours as well, and we got some cool stuff to talk about.
Of course, we always love our fans. We're glad that we got some great questions. Honestly, a lot of really insightful ones. Also, a lot of very flattering ones. So we got a good mix.
Okay, well, it's gonna get a little wild here, I think, as we had the poll up maybe we had the poll up maybe for a little bit too long, but we can start off with our first question here from Salt Mine podcast member TDS, who asks, do you think the success shown by qualified teams is something that can be replicated in the near future, or is it an occurrence that won't happen again in quite a while?
Yeah, and I mean, off the bat, TDS, this is a really interesting question because, I mean, the short answer for me, at least, is I don't know whether or not this will be something that's replicated, but I'm led to believe yes. I would think that this is proof that the promotion relegation tournament will be impossible to predict going forward because the amateur space is always so tumultuous and has so many changes, and feels like sometimes whoever wins is just whoever woke up on the right side of the bed that day. And so that is what leads me to believe that I do think that this isn't just we had the wrong team start in NACL. Maybe that's the case, but I also think that there's nothing that leads me to believe that Supernova, Tony Top, Team Fish Taco are safe. Maybe even Maryville, So, yeah, I think this could be replicated in the future.
I think a lot of this actually comes down to the question of whether or not challenger fixed teams are still going to exist going into next year and beyond, because if you have your secure spot as a challenger team, you can maybe experiment a little bit more, go really deep into player development, whereas these other teams now, like Fear, Wildcard, and now some of these new promoted teams in as well, are going to be really incentivized to win because they don't want to have their spot up for relegation. I do think though that there's always players that kind of fall through the cracks every season that will like somehow be left off of a spot. Players like, of course, Dragoon and Sudsy, Wallflower, Tony Top, and the like, and a lot of them ended up forming together and making it a team that came up and promoted. So I would not be surprised to see like super teams every year formed in the qualifiers like we saw, and really take, really challenge some of these other teams. But I do also think it kind of has to be mixed in with the fact that the league might look a little different coming in, and maybe there isn't like a provisional team, fixed team thing at all. Given some of the stuff that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah. All right. That's the answer to that one. We want to move on to the next one?
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on.
Great question, TDS. That's an interesting thought. I will be curious to watch future promotion relegations and see like if we consider, say, Supernova to be an overwhelming favorite or not.
I kind of want to see a world where if LCS teams aren't required to have spots, then like their challenger teams can get relegated. I think that would make things pretty interesting.
I agree. I think that would make things interesting. That is definitely a conversation for another day, but I think that would be very interesting.
All right, let's move on. Our guy Yanni, fellow caster, CLOL broadcaster as well, asked a couple of questions here, so we'll go through some of them one by one. First, do you think that Team Fish Taco were robbed a bit by the format since they only lost to qualifier teams? What are your over-under season wins for these new teams, assuming all rosters stay the same? And what is your God Squad for the summer OQ? So kind of that what we were alluding to a little bit earlier. Hawk, do you want to start off with this first question?
Yeah, this first question is so funny to me because absolutely not. They could have beat Tony Top or fucking Supernova and made it into the NACL. They had their chance. They botched it. And like theoretically the provisional teams should be the favorites. So theoretically dodging the provisional teams, actually not having to play AoE, who would have been scarier, is good for them. So I think Team Fish Taco absolutely had their chance and they fumbled the bag. Like, sorry, man. They didn't get. The only thing they screwed was themselves. So,
yeah. If you're thinking like, oh, Team Fish Taco actually is a top 4 team, because that's the argument that you're making. If you said that they were maybe robbed a little bit by the format, you have to put them above at least one of the teams that they relegated, qualified back into the NACL, and those 4 are AoE, which I think probably not, considering the fact that they smashed through Supernova and then they beat Maryville. Maryville, I don't think so either. I mean, there was that series where Team Fish Taco did 2-0 Maryville, and so maybe if they were put into a matchup that could have happened. And yeah, Tony Top and Supernova, you should have just beat them if you wanted to actually make their way in. So maybe Maryville is like a question mark, because they actually were the last team to make it in. So even though we had them as like one of our favorites, they were the last day entrance. So you can make an argument there. I do think the format was a little bit weird because it felt kind of, I don't know, like one half of the bracket, like not lopsided, but just like weirdly, like
there wasn't
weighted.
A lot of there wasn't a lot of crossover between the teams, if that makes sense.
And also the fact that like in the second round it was the first place provisional team against the first place qualifier team in Maryville versus AoE, because it's like 1 versus 5, and like that's just kind of how numbers work. Assuming that all the provisional teams are supposed to be seeded better than all of the qualifier teams. Spoiler alert, they weren't. But I thought that overall it was weird that we had Maryville, we had like the best teams and like the worst teams in that same half of the bracket, and like Maryville AoE, and then theoretically Last Dance Supernova.
Yeah, my hot take here as well. I actually think Team Fish Taco was gifted promotion on a silver platter by the format, and they botched it because, again, they didn't play AoE or Maryville, who I think were by far the 2 best teams. They had their chance against TFT, D and Tony Top and Supernova, and I think they were not able to convert. And if you can't convert on that, then tough. That's tough. And I hope to see them bounce back next split with a similar roster or something like that, because I think they're a great team. And I don't want to like rag on them too much, but I really think they actually, given the format, had a great shot and they couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, it was weird because I thought they had a great series against TL first, and then kind of just didn't look good after that,
Yeah.
especially against Supernova, which of course was a team that they beat time after
Yeah.
time back in the qualifiers. Over under for each of these teams, I kind of think of it more as like where would I place them, like in the
Yeah.
standings than like
Yeah.
wins. I think Maryville are gonna hover somewhere around the middle of the pack, somewhere with AOE and wildcard, kind of in a way,
Mm-hmm.
like that 9 through 12, maybe like 7 through 12 kind of area. I think that Tony Top could have like a peak at around there, and if not, like they'll probably be like maybe towards like the bottom ish instead, and maybe similar for Supernova if all the rosters stay the same. I think that Tony and Supernova probably are in the bottom half, but I could see worlds where they're like closer to the top of the bottom half.
Yeah. Completely in agreement. I think Maryville will be right around AOE at that like 10th place range, and I honestly I'm so hyped for Supernova. However, I still think they're gonna be like a CLG Faith. I think I
I don't know about
don't see
that
them
bad
doing much.
though, because
What?
that the roster is better than CLG Faith
Okay, who goes
in my
16
opinion.
then?
I mean, like I think that they could. There's a world where they go 16. I don't think it's a world where they win just one game. I think they take more than one, like
That's
off
okay.
of
That's
throughout
valid.
all the teams.
Yeah, I'll take that. I do think Supernova finishes 16, and Tony Top. I'm with you. I would see them in like the 12 to 15 range, where or there's like a weird world where I feel like this team is the Cincinnati Fear. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
why.
can kind of
Just
see that honestly.
this team has just I think gotten so much better over the course of the split, like so much better. And they clearly really love playing with each other and have a great team environment as well. So there is like this weird world where like if maybe someone with some money comes in and like takes them under their wing, like maybe Tony Top is actually really good, but I would put them maybe like 13th.
Yeah, that sounds about right. By the way, if there are any sponsors out there, please sponsor this team.
Yes, if you got money,
If
throw it
if
throw it
they're
at Tony
playing
Top.
NACL for free, I will throw a riot. Although I do, of course, love the logo. God Squad for the summer OQs. That's an interesting one. I feel like it's so hard to
Yeah.
tell, especially because I think that there are going to be like promotions and demotions as well. Um, Off the top of my head, if we're just going off of like players that are not currently like on rosters in the NACL, I guess like Surdy,
Yeah, 30.
Griffin,
Oh,
um,
right,
in
Griffin.
the mid lane, maybe like Robbie Bob.
Or
80,
messages.
oh, Message is a good one as well.
Yeah.
ADC, oh gosh. And then I don't know,
ADC.
maybe I just go Aaron and Pluto for fun.
Oh, Rock Boom at ADC.
I'll go Aaron and Pluto.
Okay. Yeah, Aaron and Pluto's fine too. Your boys. I'll
Yeah.
go Rock Boom at ADC. Like someone put him on a team. Dapshin as well. I mean, good support. Yeah, that's the rapid fire. I don't think we need to spend much time on that question, but those are like players that are probably going to be really good.
Yeah. Let's head over to at Numiii or at Numiii Goes Roars potentially. Angie from the NAMN podcast asked a lot of questions. We're gonna focus on 3 of them here because some of them were either answered earlier on in the show or will be answered a little bit later. First, what was the most surprising thing that happened in NACLQ? 2, the logo tier list, and 3, who's got the better hair? I want to go to this first one. This is the last one first here. Because I was not expecting to answer this, and we actually got a lot of comments that are
A
similar to
lot
this
of people
one.
like our hair, Graves.
I've had like the same hairstyle for years. If you like go back to like pictures of me from like when I was like 3, it's still like to the side, parted like this, just because like my
Yeah.
parents wanted it to be like that. I've
My
experimented a little bit, but
my hair has changed dramatically over the last like 3 years. Like COVID, I was one of those people that grew my hair out for the first time over COVID. Look, I think I got nice hair and everything, but I cannot compete with this guy's flow. That is just the answer.
Oh.
I'm willing to fall on the sword
You're
here and
you're
say
too
that
kind.
Graves is looking fresh as hell. He's like ask him for hair tips. I don't know, because that like, whoosh, I can't do that. I can't do that.
It actually just grows this way now. Like if
It's
I don't even I
awesome.
just
Oh,
dry
it's
it
so-
off
it's
and
so
it naturally just kind of like I don't know. I gotta like
I
I
remember
gotta
this is
change
gonna
it
sound
up
so
every once in a
strange,
while.
but when I met you in person at Madison Square Garden, I was so impressed at how like your hair like actually looks like that in real life. Like you know what I mean? was
Oh
like,
my
damn, it
gosh.
really does just sit like that. Like it's so.
Yeah, it's not movie magic. That's what it's like.
Oh yeah.
Logo tier list. I mean, it's just Tony top first, and then everyone
Yeah,
else kind
Tony
of
top
after that.
first. Everybody
Um,
else.
you should check out Summer's halftime show on the day that she did the NACL promotion tournament. Where actually she did a logo tier list of like all the different like amateur weird logos that we had, which included like Tony, Zeus Gaming.
Oh
Oh
my,
gosh,
amateur
there are some other
logos
ones in there as well.
never fail to disappoint. Like University of St. Trevor, like that
Yeah,
one
yeah, yeah, I
was
think that might have been in there as well. Yeah, just a bunch of wild ones.
every team that just randomly without Colomer's consent uses Zuby as a
Right.
logo. Like
That one
that
too.
has happened multiple times.
Oh man, and of course and of course DK Crew has to go up there at some point as well.
Yeah.
What was the most surprising thing that happened in the qualifiers?
Ooh. See, I made sure to have an answer for all these questions coming in, and that one I kind of forgot to. What is the? I mean, for me, coming into the year, Native Gaming getting out in 2 quarterfinals in a row, and I know a little bit of format fuckery happened there. However, that was pretty surprising. I'm still gonna say Supernova promoting, especially after Hyper left. Like coming into the year, I said they probably would have promoted once Hyper left. I would have never said that, and they did it, and that is amazing for them. Other ones, I don't know, Rock Bottom, just like being casually the second best team in qualifiers, I guess. Like, I don't know, I had them seated like 13th coming into the tournament, and clearly they were better than that. So that's my rapid fire, like top 3 maybe.
Yeah, the qualifiers had some very interesting moments. Rock Bottom was definitely one of them. Other than that, I think just Supernova promoting, if that counts, like still like we something that like we really
we're sitting here and we're like, oh, like I could not believe it. Grapes like DM'd me in a panic and was like, "There's a world in which like Supernova promotes and Hyper doesn't," and we're both like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, is that hilarious? By the way,
Yeah,
that, like,
it's
the promoted guy
That's
doesn't.
crazy.
Man, yeah, that's probably one of them. And then if we like want to get into some other things, the fact that there was a known criminal that was owning one of the
my
teams.
God.
That was also an
I
interesting
forgot
moment.
about that.
We don't have to delve on
That-
this any further, but if
That
you wanna...
was what like convinced me that our life is a simulation. I could not believe that. That whole day was really surreal.
Oh man, it was a good one. All right, let's head over to our next person who asked some questions. Shout out to Axeman87 who asked, "This
Love
split we get
Axeman.
promotion relegation between tier 3 and tier 2. What are the chances that we get the same between tier 2 and tier 1 at some point in the future? Also, how does Hawkcast get his hair like that? And Speedy Grapes, does he have a ghostwriter for his sick bars?" I will actually answer this question first because I don't like the slander that you're throwing at me, Axeman. These are homegrown bars. I will say shout out to Deseresks for absolutely slaying it on the keys. For giving me the beats for me to write some stuff on. But I got to make another music video with Eric. It was a lot of fun.
I have heard from Eric himself that the ideas for these are actually oftentimes not just his. Like, you're the one that comes in with the bars, and then Eric is just like, "Oh, okay, I'll lay down a sick beat for you if you want it." That is
it was
what
the other way
Eric has
around
told
this
me.
time,
So,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
the other way around this time. But he said like the original DK Crew video was your idea. I don't know if that's true, but
You know, it's kind of just like one of those like how did the Beatles form kind of thing. Where
right,
you just,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
never
of
really know.
course. You gotta stay humble. You gotta stay humble out there. How do I get my hair like that? That's an easy question. I wake up and then I kind of do like a little bit of that action, and then it's done. For like special events, my girlfriend made me get this. My girlfriend made me get curl cream to like
Wow.
bring out the curls in my hair. I don't put it in every day because it was like $14 for this. Like I feel like this shit's like gold.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a lot of hair care products. It just costs. way too
It
much
does
money.
work. Like if I ever have an important casting show or other show or like I don't know something, it makes my hair look good. So that's how I get my hair like that.
Very nice. Wow. In other serious news, I guess. Although I'm still thinking about.
Are you
all
telling me
these
that
hair
wasn't serious,
questions.
Grapes?
No. I have like this like shampoo that like keeps my hair like a certain color and like prevents it from like turning super orange because I like dyed it. And that was also like like $10, and it's a lot of money.
Dude,
So
they're expensive. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get Head and Shoulder shampoo, and that stuff's not cheap either. Because I get flaky scalp. Anyway, that's really now you know that.
Yeah, we're going off the rails a little bit, but it's all right. Promotion relegation between tier 2 and tier 1, I just don't think happens ever because of the way that franchising has kind of established itself. Although I do think it would be fun to see like the challengers winner play up against like the team that like the last place LCS team in like a best of 5 and like just kind of for bragging rights. But I don't know if the league would ever want to do that.
They would not want to do that because the bottom LCS team would never agree to that. That would be horrible for them. Yeah, I don't really have much to add to this. No, as long as franchising is a thing, and I don't think franchising is going away. It would be fun. But
imagine they like have to go up a gauntlet. Like the challengers league winner like plays a 10th place team, and if they win, they play the 9th place team. If they win, they play the 8th place team. They go all the way up until see like how far up the ladder they can go. That's a fun idea for off season.
What if LCS teams aren't required to have a NACL team? They're just required to have at least one team, and you could get demoted from the LCS. So, like, if Dig got demoted from the LCS, they would still have to have a challengers team and try to promote back in. And Cloud9's just like chilling with 2 teams. I don't know.
Kind of like how like Premier League works almost, where it's just like 4 different levels or something like that.
I mean, I don't think the teams would ever agree to that either, but it's fun to think about. It's fun to talk about.
Yeah. Thank you, Axeman. Let's move on. Delfi. Another fan of the NA Men podcast, another member of the NA Men podcast. Hawk, you were on NA Men just a couple of weeks ago.
It was a lot of fun.
Delfi, of course, with her hard-hitting analytical questions once again, coming out with how did Hawk become so handsome? And I think you need to answer this one yourself.
Wow, Delfi, I guess I'm just built like that. I don't know. I can't believe I just said that. I'm so sorry.
That's gonna become like that's like a TikTok edit right now.
That
like,
is we gotta release that as like a short video. I don't know. I'm just that guy. That's really my answer. I don't know what else to say to that. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed being on your show, and I had a lot of fun. And
I will use this time to shout out all the other podcasts about League of Legends that a lot of these people are part of here. Of course, we got Saltmine with TDS earlier, Numiii, and Delfi with NA Men. Our next person who asked the question, Noxwar, also part of FlightCheck, which is like the FlyQuest podcast, and Shibby, also we'll be talking to him a little bit later, answering his question a little bit later, has a series where he interviews some people. I just listened to the episode with Beatdown. It was a lot of fun. So a lot of people making some good stuff. Keep it up, everybody. We're saving NA one podcast at a time that everyone kind of just listens to each other with. So
we can all like. Never mind.
We
all get to listen to each other and tell each other how great we are. You know, like that's.
Noxwar from FlightCheck asked the question: what are y'all's general thoughts on what it was like having these LCS provisional teams in the league now that the split is over? Are you glad that we had them in the league, or should we have had 3 other additional amateur orgs in the NACL from the very beginning instead? I do think that having the like independent organizations in the league was like a very cool thing because this was something that we talked about from episode 1. But these teams like had a very different goal that they had to achieve than any of the other teams in the league, which was to win. You know, on challengers rosters, like your goal is to develop players and like build stuff for the orgs. I thought that was a very interesting dynamic with how that worked with also the LCS provisional teams because of the fact that you want to build to develop because you're like the LCS third team, but also you could get demoted. So that was a pretty interesting thing. But I did like having the LCS provisional teams in the league. I wonder if some of them come back, especially with some of the recent news. But it was a cool thing to have. Yeah,
I just want to add to the podcast thing. I tried to get Avali May to watch our podcast. She said she'd never heard of it though. So
damn,
really. I know. I was like, "Have you heard of Salty Runback?" And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh." And she said she'd look out for it. So Avali, you better be watching.
Hey, wow, first episode. Joining us.
I'm gonna tweet at you if you haven't watched it. No, she probably won't see it. Anyway, answering the question, I think having the LCS affiliated orgs is good. However, I actually think having independent orgs is better. Kind of talking about what you said, Grapes, because I think that having a team like Wildcard. I mean, yeah, they want to develop talent, but like Wildcard wants to be fucking good, you know? Like And I think there's a lot of value in that. And like teams like Supernova, they have a lot of people that really are dedicated to the scene and passionate and care. And I think having them playing at this level is ultimately going to be really good for everyone because they're going to put together rosters that are just hungry to compete and prove themselves. And I think there's so much value in that. Kind of breaking out of the systems in a way can be a good thing. So I'm kind of neutral on the issue, but I think these amateur orgs are gonna be great. Now, should we have had them from the beginning? Like, no. I actually think Riot's logic of putting the LCS affiliated orgs in like makes a lot of sense. I think that was a smart thing to do because you don't want to piss off your LCS orgs, and theoretically they should be the best. So I don't think that was the wrong choice, but I'm excited for the teams that are now there.
Yeah, I think I want to get into this a little bit later because there's another question that I think we can continue to build off of this, but I don't know. It is kind of weird that all three of them are just gone now. Like those are the three orgs and TFT that just like got
Which
pushed
granted
out of the league.
AOE is affiliated with Golden Guardians, but yeah.
That's true.
But still, no, 3 of 4, I mean that's a pretty big number. And the 4 of 4 hitting relegation is kind of crazy. So
yeah, it kind of just goes to show like the difference in the philosophy around building the roster, and maybe the fact that they're treated the same was a little bit
Right.
of a interesting thing to keep track of, and it obviously resulted in what we saw here.
And I don't want to dive too much down the rabbit hole with this, but also like even compared to last year, outside of CLG Faith, who unfortunately was not amazing, like 100 Thieves Next, like IMT AOE, those kind of teams were like the top of amateur last year. So I think we sort of expected that again with the LCS provisional teams, but they're just different roster construction, different things happening. So.
Yeah, so it's always a little interesting thing to talk about. Thank you very much, Noxwar, for the question. I know he was very invested in that because FlyFam was unfortunately knocked out. But
I was so excited about FlyFam at the beginning of the year too. I really was. But
let's head over to our next person. Jido, coach for Team Tony Top, asks, "How much for Grapes Duck Song campaign?" I mean,
it's priceless.
If you look at it like really closely, it's just marker. I literally just traced over it and drew. I had this like really weird setup for this year for the way that like my PC and like background was like. This actually just like a really shitty like wood background here, and so to fix it I like put black poster board over it. I added some like of like my drawings. I don't know, like from last year there was the whole, I had like all the team logos and things like that. And I added this little guy over here, which is right next to the grapes as well. So it works out.
It looks great.
Yeah, I kind of,
to answer the question, priceless.
Yeah, I mean I could make you one if you want. Like if you if we ever cross paths, I will happily trace over another thing on my computer and hand it over to you. Mad Magic was a very big fan of the duck in the back, obviously. So, I will be moving out of this place by the time summer split starts. I don't exactly know the plan of like what things are gonna look like, but it's gonna be different. So we'll see if the duck actually survives.
We'll see. On to Shibby, shall we?
Yeah. Our last person that asked some questions was Shibby, caster for the MEC. Was very happy about Ottawa
and
making
CBLOL
it
unofficial English. They go
CBLOL as well.
Gotta shout out my homies.
Shibby asked a lot of very hard-hitting questions here.
Yes.
So the first one, what changes would you suggest for the NACL, NACLQ scene? What take were you afraid to say back then that maybe you want to share now? Who's going to win the NBA championship, and your personal top 5 anime list all time? Not just an objective list, your personal favorites. I'm going to come off straight and say I don't know if I have 5 anime that I've like watched in entirety. So I don't know if I can fully answer that last question, but we can start off from the beginning if you want here, Hawk. What are some changes that you would suggest for the NACL scene?
Yeah. Shibby really hitting us with some good ones, by the way. What changes would I suggest? Biggest one for me is different point values for NACLQ. I know we've talked about this on the show in the past, but like the first tournament, the second tournament cannot be weighted the same. I don't want to see another rock bottom situation. I do think first tournament should matter, and I do think there should be incentive to play in both. However, I think the second one's got to be weighted more, or like top 2 auto qualify, something like that, to incentivize teams. I also, another thing potentially, I know promotion relegation currently is 4-on-4. What if there was more NACL Q teams in there?
So
Like,
it's
why does it have to be an even number?
like
right?
6 and 2, and then like
Yeah,
the top 2 make it in.
Or like I don't like 4 could still promote, but what if there was just like it was like 6 against 4 or something like that, and like there was just more qualifier teams in the mix? Like maybe that would over bloat the tournament, so maybe that wouldn't be worth it. But
Yeah.
maybe it'd make the provisional teams prove their mettle a bit more. I don't know. That's just a random thought that I had literally just now. The biggest one for me is the qualifier point championship point value one. That's necessary, I think.
I like the idea where like if you win the second tournament, then you get start in. Like other stuff like
Yeah.
waiting wise, like I'm not 100% sure on, just because I'm not that good at math, and like it might screw over a team like yeah, I don't really know for sure. Because in a way it does kind of weigh the second tournament better, in that if there was a team that finished quarters and then semis versus semis and then quarters, the former team would make it because they finished semis in the last tournament. So in a way, there already is kind of some weight, but
Yeah.
not enough where like if you're in the if you miss the first tournament, don't really have a chance to get in, which I think does kind of suck, especially
There's gotta be
because
something.
like there are teams that kind of live and die and like form like between these events and stuff like that. I think that would be a good change. I think my biggest thing that I would want to change here in this ecosystem is just making things like not conflict with each other so much. Whether that's
yes, please.
yeah, like whether that's, of course, I'm okay with NACL and NACL qualifiers like taking place on the same day, because obviously you're never gonna have somebody competing in both at the same time. But just all of this also conflicting with CLOL, I think caused a lot of issues this season.
Yeah.
We think back to like how Trickster like was at a LAN and like his team wasn't able to compete, and that might have like screwed some people over. To even now that Maryville is in the NACL, if they make top 8 in CLOL, like there's a conflict there with the week 1 NACL and top 8 CLOL. So I would just like to avoid like situations where, obviously
Yes.
having games on the weekends is always a good thing because people have other obligations. But if there's a world where people want to play in like 2 different leagues at the same time, just have them on different days. I think it worked okay in the last years where we had like every day there was like a different league going on. I understand why we wanted to push more things to weekends, but maybe not everything can be on the same day.
Yeah. I mean, I personally appreciated the qualifiers being on the weekends as opposed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Mondays and Tuesdays, so I didn't have to skip class to make shows. But yeah, I agree. I'm going to sit on a soapbox for a second, and at risk of pissing off all of the collegiate Twitter directors and the amateur org managers, there's always a huge discussion about like what's the better path to pro, collegiate or amateur. And I'm not going to answer that question because I don't think there is a better one. However, I do think that like weirdly CLOL gets routinely like pushed under the rug a little bit by Riot until like now only top 4 as far as like structuring. And I think creating a more robust framework and hype around CLOL would be so much better for the scene as a whole, because I got to be honest, I think it's, at least as far as casual viewership, I actually think there's a much larger audience to be found in CLOL than there is in amateur, because collegiate and school viewership is really real. And there's a lot of players out there that probably care a lot about their school and the schools that they're playing against more than they do about amateur. And that's not to say that like, oh, we should favor CLOL over amateur, but I feel like I would really like to see CLOL given some more attention next year. And by extension, high school leagues. Like if there could be a developmental pipeline from high school to college to pro, with amateur alongside that, I think that would be an ideal world. And I think as far as sustaining the scene through future generations, getting kids excited about League of Legends like when they're 14 years old, and seeing that there's like a real way to move up in that would be amazing. So that's my soapbox. And so yeah, let's not schedule CLOL at the same time as things. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to some coaches about this schedule, and they were thinking, hey, like Friday night is like when you go watch like high school football games. Maybe that's when you go watch CLOL and you can play Friday
dude,
night.
oh my
Like,
god, like
that'd be pretty cool.
someone hire Graves right now. Like that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What take that you were afraid to say back then that you can share now? That's a really fun one. Man, I don't want to like shit on different teams and players and things like that. But
But they're all negative. They have to be negative.
I really thought that a take that I was afraid to say was I thought that it was weird that teams like the LCS affiliated amateur teams or the LCS provisional teams, like specifically CLG Faith and FlyFam, built their rosters with such a developmental like core around it, because that team was just kind of destined to get relegated, and you were really banking on the fact that you improved enough that you would be able to basically I don't know, survive the promotion tournament in a world where esports is just completely super volatile all the time. I think that it's weird because you of course want to have like your like better talent on the challengers rosters where you're getting paid, they're getting paid more, they're in a better like ecosystem potentially, but you also don't want to get relegated. And so I thought it was like a really interesting dynamic. I think TL almost like had like a good plan with that, because I think a lot of their pieces were players that I thought like deserved promotions into the NACL, and like it actually did make sense to see them there. But I don't know. I think I think bringing in like a bunch of like a very new top side for FlyFam in Lunacia and what was Goo at the time. Of course, Lunacia ended up working out. Goo didn't really as much. And then for CLG Faith, bringing on a bunch of very, very new players to either different positions or like a level of play that they were never really on. I feel like that was very risky, and of course, it didn't really pay off for them. And so that was something that was a little bit. I wasn't sure like how it was actually going to pan out, but now after we saw the promotion tournament, I can say you really need to build to win if you're one of these teams that can get relegated, or else you're just going to get relegated.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in agreement with you on that. I don't really have much to add to that one. I'll share my takes instead. I have two. One is that coming into the split, I thought Immortals Challenger would be Dogwater, and they were. Two.
Was that a hot take?
That's the take. What?
Was that a hot take? Was that really a hot take?
I didn't say it. I mean, so whether or not it's a hot take, I don't know. But I was like afraid to call any teams Dogwater, but they were. I mean, I rated them really low on my tier list though, so maybe I was pretty aware of that. Anyway, I'm saying it again because I didn't really hammer it on that much, but I was like, I think ADD as an import was questionable at best. And then the big one. It was a take that I actually did say, but I was too afraid to stick to my guns on. Coming into the split, and I think in the very, very first episode of Salty Runback, if I'm not mistaken.
One of the first headlines of all time. Yeah,
I said that Maryville would be by far, or something like that, by far the best team in qualifiers, something like that. Something to the effect of they're going to be the best, and I was pretty confident in it. And then I like kind of got talked out of it when I was on seating committee, or not talked out of it, but I was like not confident enough in my opinion to like stick to it. And I'm not going to claim that because like I wasn't confident enough, but I wish I was, because I remember before I like got too heady about it and just coming in and like having viewed Maryville's performances in tournaments over winter, I was like, I actually think this team is super, super, super cracked. And looking at like names and who everyone else is, I was like, I think this is going to be the best team, hands down. And I was right. But then I wasn't confident enough in it. So that was sort of mine that I wish I held on to. And that is a good note for me in the future, that as a pundit in the scene, I should be more confident in my opinions and be willing to be wrong instead of backing down from them. So There you go. Lessons for Hawk as a broadcaster.
Yeah, Numiii and Trevor still proved me very wrong. I thought that they were going to be
bad,
and
there
they
you
weren't.
go.
So I guess.
And we were pretty. I mean, you especially. You were pretty firmly planted on that hill. Yeah. Sometimes we're wrong, and I mean it's fun to be wrong. I think so.
Who's gonna win the NBA championship though, Hawk? I know you don't follow basketball too much, but this is pretty interesting.
Did the Wizards make the playoffs?
They did not by a long shot.
That sucks. I don't know. I don't follow the NBA.
Okay.
They're my home team, my hometown team. Shout out the Wizards. They always suck.
This will please whoever's watching that watches basketball, but man, Jimmy Butler is going crazy in Miami right now. I don't think that they win, but that's a really fun story to watch. I think it's either the Celtics or I might give it to the Suns actually. In Phoenix, they got my boy Kevin Durant, who, of course, as a Brooklyn fan, I'm a little bit sad that he's not part of Brooklyn anymore. But I of course want to support him, and they have I think lost one game with him in the lineup. So they look pretty scary right now. Yeah. Top 5 anime list of all time. I preface this. I don't really have. I don't watch too many, but
yeah.
Hawk, if you wanna
I can
throw
hit
some
this
out
one.
there.
Yeah. Just for the record, if anyone has a college basketball question, like I'm your guy. NBA, not your guy. I do, guys. I promise I like traditional sports. I'm not just a nerd. Just not basketball is like the one. Anyway, okay. I need to like make sure I have this. Okay. Top 5. Probably in order, but not super confident on that. Number 5, Bungo Stray Dogs. Number 4, Haikyuu. Number 3, Jujutsu Kaisen. No, sorry, Mob Psycho 100. Number 2, Jujutsu Kaisen. Number 1, Violet Evergarden. That final one is based on how many times the show made me cry, which is far too many to count. Dang. So it's number 1. Dude, that show, watch it. It's only 13 episodes long. It's on Netflix. It will fuck you up. It'll make you very sad.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have watched Haikyuu. That was gonna be one of them. That show is great.
That show's banging, dude. I'm so ready for the final
last
2
season
movies to come out.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a season. It's gonna be two movies.
Right.
Yeah.
They have a lot to like catch up on though with like the manga. I don't know how they're gonna do that in 2 movies, but
who the fuck knows?
I've heard good stuff about Mob Psycho as well. One of my friends like a really big fan of it. I've watched some of it, but I probably should catch up on that as well. I've actually been watching Blue Lock recently as well, like another sports anime. It's like
I've heard that is really good.
It's pretty good. It's not as I don't think it's as like hype as like Haikyuu, but it's like it's like kind of like a sports anime, but like in a weird twist on it where it gets kind of.
This is so random, but I feel like I saw Rafa tweet about Blue Lock. Like,
I think he did. Yeah. He did. Yeah, I was watching it before. Actually, I watched the first episode while I was in New York for Worlds.
Nice.
So that was when I got that started. But I still have to catch up on like the last couple episodes. But that is basically the extent of my anime.
So you're big sports anime guy.
History. Yeah, just a couple of them. But
nice.
Yeah, I think
that's valid.
I think that's all of our questions as well. Wow, we went a little bit over.
We made it.
I know. It was a good time. Thank you everybody for submitting questions.
Yeah, seriously. Shout out everyone. We are glad that you all are so passionate about the show and wanted to have questions. I mean a lot of great ones, a lot of flattering ones, like we said. But Grapes, unless you got anything else, I'll send us out here.
I'm gonna be thinking about my hair for forever now.
Grace is gonna go to bed tonight with a smile on his face. Because you all made him happy.
Thank you everybody for a great season. We may or may not be back next week, depending on if we have enough time, and also if like the news cycle is pretty big. Hey, who knows? We'll pop in. Other than that, expect some content leading up to the start of summer. We have some plans in the works. We don't want to like reveal everything just yet because we're not 100% sure how things are gonna go down. But you'll be seeing us sooner rather than later. But overall, a really great spring split and a really great opening season, I guess, to Salty Runback. It was a lot of fun, Hawk.
Yeah, we had a great time. And we will definitely be back in the summer split if we're not back next week. Like Grape said, maybe crazy things will happen and we'll be back on, but if it's just CLOL Top 16, we probably couldn't get a whole episode out of that, unfortunately. But who knows? Because the space is definitely ever changing. But with all that being said, you will most certainly see more of both of our handsome faces, according to the community. But make sure you follow us on all of our social media, at Salty Runback Pod on all platforms. You can email us at saltyrunbackpod@gmail.com if you have even more questions, or, I don't know, you want to send us something that would make us smile even more. We'd really appreciate that. Be sure, well, I don't actually have anything to plug for us. Normally I have something to plug for us, but be sure to tune into CLOL Top 16. Going to be on Battlefy B and Battlefy C, if I'm not mistaken. I don't actually know.
I don't really know.
Dude, I have no idea who's covering this. We will find out Grapes and I don't know either. But
We'll
we will
retweet it, so follow us.
We'll tweet it. Follow us on all of our socials, at Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes. But with all that being said, if you think that, I don't know, that Haikyuu is a bad anime, you can take it with a grain of salt. But also, you're a dum-dum if you think it's a bad anime. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a great night, everyone.